Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Lynn Donovan. I have served here at St. Andrew's for a little bit more than 10 years, and it's wonderful to see so many of our circles of friends gathered here this afternoon. I think the biggest journey that St. Andrew's has taken over the last 10 years is to determine how many more windows there might be for those of us on the spiritual quest to connect with the mystery that we call God. As those who are steeped in the Protestant tradition, our history has given us words, and more words. But we know that words do not provide a wholesome diet through this journey called life. And so we have been very intentional in that journey of identifying all those other practices that connect us to mystery. And we have been most indebted to both the musical community and the artistic community for coming alongside of us with such generosity in order to help us to open our eyes and to connect with mystery in a way that, like I say, Protestants haven't always done. So about 4 years ago when Jean Campbell showed up amongst us, it seemed a wonderful opportunity to appoint her as our first annual artist in residence. And then we appointed Wellington Lambert, and then there was David Rankin, and now Tom Dietzel. And in the year that Jean was artist in residence, she reached out to a number of folk from the artistic community. And like I said, you were all so generous with your yeses. And it got to the point where any time that we showed up in the sanctuary and there was not art on the walls, the whole place felt naked. So during that first year when Jean was with us, she said, I think we need to get Anne Ireland into the room. And what a joy it was. I have this really strong memory of overseeing this really Scottish Protestant tradition called the Kirkin of the Tartan, right? Very traditional, lots of kilts, and yet over there, out of the corner of my eye, I could see Anne's Buddha as I see her. And I just thought, don't you love the 21st century? All right, so last year when we were stuck for the season of Pentecost, which is a season about fire and freedom and spirit, all of us were thinking, let's just go back to Anne, okay? Because so much about what she offers to the world is about fire and freedom and spirit, and she wholeheartedly said yes again. And then as we were moving into this particular Lenten period, in a time in history when the fear factor across the planet seemed to go viral sometime in November, and we thought maybe we needed to wrestle with those kinds of fears that suddenly seemed to be blanketing our communities. I thought, I bet Anne knows something about fear that she can teach us. So I sent another email off to her, and this was her response. What a wonderful proposal coming at this time of uncertainty and lack of productivity in my life. I would definitely like to be involved, and it is very fine. It is the very fire that may encourage me to burn with it rather than to run away. Certainly fear is a theme in my life these days. Maybe it's more indecision than fear, but whatever it is, I haven't been able to paint. I figure that most of my work comes from somewhere deep within me or way beyond me. Same place. And my whole being has been taken over by the needs and concerns of this disease. Not very productive, and I do tell myself that, but I would like to produce 1 or 2 new pieces. And I surely have lots of others available, including The Woman Carrying the Fire, which I know is your favorite. So thanks for the opportunity. So once the art was put up on the wall, I thought it might be a good opportunity for this year's artist in residence, Thomas Dietzel, to provide a soundtrack for this work. He and Anne got together about 3 weeks ago. I had an idea she may not be here to enjoy that partnership so much. But I'm going to hand it over to Tom. He actually recorded the majority of his conversation with Anne, which I had the privilege of transcribing this week, and members of Anne's family will be speaking in her words, which I did not change unless I thought maybe we needed one little grammatical correction. But this is the piece that actually Anne did since she accepted the invitation. So Tom will first speak to Transformations.
Okay, so it's called Transformations. And as Lynn said, it's maybe it's the most recent. Is it? Yeah. It was interesting because I came over and sat with the paintings first and took some notes before Anne came, and I thought it was a girl with a pail of baby flowers, and that there was a woman beside her with the long gown and the shoe, and I didn't notice the animals in the picture. And then Anne pointed out when she came that she thought that was actually a man, kind of a mystical creature, she said. And he's drawing that globe up toward him. And the little animal that's up by, I think she said it was the moon, is Huxley, one of her cats, who passed maybe about 2 years ago or so, something like that. And so in this piece, you will probably, if you're listening carefully, you might be able to hear Huxley.
I never took painting seriously until after Noah was born, and he's 45 now. In the late 80s, I went back to school and took a course at Ontario College of Art, and then went to Italy for a school year. They have a college in Italy. We had a great guy who took us on trips once a week to visit churches where artists like Caravaggio actually worked. It was 1992 to 1994. I came back and continued to paint in Toronto and had a few shows. I really wasn't sure what I was doing at that point. Not that I am now. I have a little more confidence now than I used to, but still starting a painting is really difficult, even though you have an idea versus this big white thing. I did ballet forever, and it was so wonderful, and the pianist played classical music, and I did not know classical from anywhere else. I went to the National Ballet for a summer, and that kind of cured me of wanting to be a ballerina. Too much restraint and all of the obsession around food. When it comes to the creative process, I don't always think things through. I wait for it to emerge. I think, what happens when you let yourself be free? I would feel compelled, as I was moving the paint around, to see or feel things different. That's why I don't start with a drawing. Basically, I just play with the paint, and then I draw on top of it when I see something. It's like a teacher of mine who was an odd duck. He would get a piece of canvas and then stare at it until he saw what was in it. And apparently, something manifested. Everything is in your mind anyway.
Night at the Coliseum. I was in Rome for a while, and I just loved the Coliseum, and I loved the arches. At night, it is always lit up, and there are always cats everywhere, not malicious cats. And there was a bride in full white dress getting her pictures taken, and I thought it was odd, just the bride, no bridegroom, at night with the lights. Over the years, I did a number of pictures of the Coliseum with pictures in it, but I couldn't find the bride. So I set this in mythical times when creatures weren't quite so fierce. I love the cats. They are actually holding hands. The Minotaur is a threatening creature, but he isn't really threatening there. He is taking one of the cat's tails. And he has a portrait of himself with the bride and the hermaphrodite. I couldn't find anyone else who fit. So it was a myth of some sort sanctioned by the priestly beasts. But once again, when I started, I did not know where it was going. And things I let happen that others might not like the purple that dripped. I love things like that just happen. I suppose it could be blood, but I don't think so. And I have some that were more violent with blood when I was thinking at the time of all the horror in the world. I couldn't decide whether or not the drops would represent the tear. I just didn't know. I let it drip. I am also okay that people don't necessarily know what everything is. Not that I don't want to tell them, but they can look and see other things.
I'd like to point out also on the night at the Coliseum, beneath the Minotaur's legs, Anne pointed out to me that there is she calls it his family portrait. So it's, I think it's a husband and wife, maybe groom and bridegroom. And I think it's also in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. If you look really closely, there's a little portrait. So it's bringing a sense of wanting, I don't know, I don't want to speculate, but, the family, like a sense of family, possibly. I'm not. But anyway, she pointed it out, and I hadn't noticed it, actually. So you have to look pretty carefully, but yeah.
Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I read it a long time ago. It is quite different than the Frankenstein that has been projected. It is like a human who has been cut into parts for a scientific experiment. It is much more than a story about a monster. I could identify with the story of a person who is created. I wrote this piece called Me and Frank. I identified with this wounded, patched-together creature who could not feel and had no sense of who or what he was. He is searching under the cover of a dark, muddy moon. He is overcome with his lack and has gone hunting to find himself a real heart. There was a heart painted on his sleeve, and in it, a family portrait.
He came to me fully formed. To me, he does not seem fearsome, just lost, terrified, and alone, looking for somewhere to belong. There is his heart, but it is way too big for his body. He is so desperate for a family. I did not know why I chose to make the heart green, but later in yoga discovered that the heart chakra is represented by the color green. This was done in 1992, so it was before I went to Italy, so I was painting seriously then. I really enjoyed the process of less brush strokes. If you let it drip, you see other things and it does not become so restrained.
I have almost sold this 4 or 5 times, and then people ask me what it's about, and I think, here we go. To me, it ends as a positive thing. I call it 3 accidents and release. It sounds like such a dreadful thing. Like the first person is mummified. She is totally wrapped up. There is no way for her to speak or move or to do anything. The pieces of canvas that I put on it reminded me that in the end, it is just a canvas. The second one has a trauma that has sort of eviscerated him. In the third one, his brain has lost. He can't think anymore, and he has lost his heart as well. In the last, he is set free. He is set free and is set free to dance under the moon. I am not one of those people who want to keep it secret. I am always happy to tell people what I thought. Others are free to think what they wish. It could represent the wounded that are trying to be mended in various ways. As my mother always said to me, up until she died, "Oh dear, couldn't you just paint something nice?" When I was a beginner, Gauguin was my favorite artist. I always thought they were very beautiful. I guess I felt like I was seeing some of the blood and gore differently. It's a part of life.
So, and now it gets more cheerful. This is more recent, but not brand new. Presents. I kind of like the fragility of it. I put 3 sheets together because I did not have a canvas. I did not have any intention about where it was going, but I ended up feeling that there was a duality there. And eventually this came out as a more angel-like figure, and almost like bars on the face for protection. I've thought of it as 2 aliens meeting each other, and this figure was definitely alien-looking. But I felt that they were communicating and not running away screaming, but they wanted to communicate. And then I thought of it on a more prosaic level. Between humans, we have so much stuff that we bring with us. How can we possibly communicate? It does not have that big of a story, but when I hang it up on the wall, it seems very peaceful. And like I said, I really don't think things through. They are that close together and trying to communicate despite the fact that they do not have much in common. This is just a smattering. I sold a lot at the big show at the Perot Gallery, and I really miss some of them. Some came from dreams. Those were actually times when I would try and reformulate something that I had seen.
After the flood. This is one of the more recent. I was thinking of the various apocalypses that happened, so I started with water and pillars falling over and had a whole bunch of creatures in it. Funny, the process you go through, because sometimes you have a red horse over here, and sometimes you have to sacrifice the creature, because it doesn't go with the painting. This is acrylic paint, so it is so easy to cover over, plus it gives a bit of texture. I really like these old pillars here. I have added cheesecloth and tissue in order to give it more texture. The bird was meant to be bringing a light to Noah's Ark. A person said that it looks more like a raptor than a dove of peace, but I don't think it matters what kind of bird it was. And then the human part was that at the end of this apocalypse, a survivor who is a woman who is carrying fire. I made her headdress kind of vague, but it is snakes. And I really liked her feet because they seemed to set right on the water. Here is another changing thing. I couldn't get to the bottom right for months. At one point, I had the head of the Statue of Liberty crashed at the bottom, but then I thought, no, I want this to be something positive. Out of it comes new life, and this is a green sea turtle. It comes to bring light and life and represents a deep wisdom. At one point, I thought that she was in the water, and then I decided that she would be walking on the water. In some ways, a flood is like that. Things are going to get difficult, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. I know that Lynn loves this piece, and then did a sermon on walking on water that suggested that you could do anything with some courage.
I was thinking that Anne's mother would have thought that particular piece ended on a rather positive note, don't you? So first of all, thank you to Tom Dietzel, who spent so much time in preparation using his own emerging spirit to meet Anne's emerging spirit to create the soundtrack for this afternoon. Thank you. It was profoundly powerful listening to these people as they spoke, really danced together. It was gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you to Jim, who encouraged a transcript of all of these words. And many thanks to all of you from Anne's family who so adequately represented her words for her. We are grateful for our friendship with her and with you, and trust that blessings will abound as a result. Do you want the last word, Tom?
It was a real joy, actually, getting together with Anne. At first, I asked if we could get together after church one time, and she just wasn't feeling up to it that day. And so I was a bit nervous that maybe, it was going to, maybe she didn't even feel that there was something to work out together. But when we actually did get together, she really enjoyed it. In fact, at the end, she said, and I've got a whole bunch more paintings that we could talk about. So, she would have enjoyed doing it again, I'm sure. So, yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.